Jenna laughed. "You sly one, always trying to avoid things," she joked, smiling at Beth. "You'd better watch out, honey, and don't let him get away with anything. He needs someone who will keep him on the right path." Both Ted and Beth blushed, and not for the reasons Jenna thought, as she gently poked Ted in the ribs and told him to leave, as she had work to do. As they were leaving, Jenna said she should be able to get the blood work done this afternoon, and she'd call them when she'd finished. Beth grabbed Ted's arm as they started back, putting on a smile as several people approached them in the corridor. As soon as they were alone again, Beth hissed to Ted, pulling him to a halt. "Ted, as soon as she starts on that blood sample, she'll know something's wrong. I wouldn't put it past her to check and see if I'm expecting." "Well, if you are, it isn't mine," smirked Ted. "Ted, you're terrible, stop with the jokes already, it's getting too much for me to handle." Beth angrily retorted, thumping him on the chest with her small fists. "Okay, I'm sorry, hey!" he exclaimed, backing off from her furious attack on his body. "I'm just as stressed as you are, okay? I was just trying to lighten the mood. I know she will find out, that was a given if she's going to get to the bottom of this. I just didn't want to tell her until she was really involved. Once she calls, I'll explain it to her. We need her, you know? I understand that, but please lay off the jokes, especially the ones that remind me of who I used to be." Beth's anger changed to frustration and then to tears, as the pressure to act the happy girlfriend took its toll on her, reminding her of her previous identity. The rest of the afternoon dragged on. Beth tried to concentrate on her work, but it felt like a chore, and she only made a half-hearted attempt to finish the checks. Ted was on the move, making sure every department under him was staying on task. It was just around 5 p.m. when a call came. Most of the employees had left or were about to leave. Ted went and told Beth to come to the lab. Beth was trembling, unsure of the news, but suspecting it wouldn't be good. She had brought Maggie along, who had been sleeping in her basket. Ted didn't say anything to Beth about what Jenna had called for, but his worried look spoke volumes. "Okay, you two, you have some explaining to do," Jenna's first words as they entered her lab. "What do you mean?" Ted bluffed, trying to delay the inevitable. Jenna scowled, looking at them closely, trying to determine if they were as innocent as they were trying to make her believe. "Well, either Beth is transitioning, or she is suffering from a severe hormonal imbalance in her pituitary gland. Her DNA is skewed too. It's as if there are two sets. One of which is in the process of overriding the other," she announced. She saw both of them blanch, and Beth started to crumble. Whatever was going on, the way they reacted to her report had been a terrible shock. Instinctively, Jenna offered the trembling Beth a seat and got her a shot of brandy from her emergency rations. "I haven't checked all the samples, but I did manage to look at the unknown sample. It's mostly saline, but the strength is unusual. It's not medical saline, the salinity is the same as found in the human body. There was one other thing in it." She paused, before continuing, looking for their reactions. "There was a significant level of testosterone in it," she concluded. She sat back, eyeing the pair while waiting for an explanation. Beth had thrown back the brandy as her life seemed to crumble away. It didn't take a genius to realize the implications. She felt like she was standing on the edge of an abyss, and someone was pushing her closer. Ted was stunned. He had guessed from the appearance of his gruesome find that the possibility of some sort of DNA breakdown might have occurred. Whether it was going to affect Colin in the long term, Ted had kept to himself, not wanting to destroy Beth's hope of a cure. Now the results were back, staring them in the face. "Jenna? What we are going to tell you must remain a secret, from everyone, including Richard, okay?" Ted implored. As if hearing his name, in walked Jenna's husband, his 6.5-foot frame completely hiding the toddler following behind. "Hi, honey, oh, sorry, I didn't realize you had company," he apologized, giving her a quick kiss. "I thought you'd be ready to go, so I brought Kathleen out from the daycare." "Ted." "Beth." "Hi, I heard you were going to be working here," Richard said as he recognized the visitors. Richard went over and shook Ted's hand, and gave Beth a smile of welcome. "Sorry, I'm interrupting something important?" he queried, looking at Jenna for confirmation. Yes, look, I shouldn't be long. Can you take Kathleen out to the courtyard and keep her occupied for me? Kathleen, who had been peeking out from behind Richard's legs, spotted Maggie. Look, Daddy, a pretty kitty. Can I play with her, please? She pleaded, looking up for approval. I'll be very gentle with her, she begged, looking at her mom with wide eyes. You'll have to ask your Aunt Beth, Jenna replied slowly, looking at Beth with a question in her eyes. Kathleen walked slowly to Beth, who managed a weak smile as the cute toddler put out a hesitant hand to touch Maggie. Maggie opened an eye, then turning her head, she licked at the inquisitive fingers. Kathleen's giggle was the signal for Maggie to squirm in Beth's grasp. Looks like Maggie wants to play. Be gentle, honey, and I'll see you soon, okay? Beth agreed. Okay, Aunt Beth, I'll be a good friend with Maggie. I'll play lots and give lots and lots of hugs, Kathleen said happily as she took Maggie into her little hands. Richard smiled at Beth as he led his giggling daughter out of the room. Okay, will someone tell me what's going on? Beth, are you trying to become male? If so, that's fine. I won't say a thing. Yes, no, oh shoot, Ted, please explain to her. I can't do this anymore, Beth started to weep. Jenna looked confused. Yes, no, what did that mean? She pondered. Ted finally shook himself. He stood behind Beth's seat, holding on to her for support, as he began to explain. Jenna's eyes widened as the tale unfolded. Various emotions flew across her face. Surprise, disbelief, wonder, sorrow, and finally determination. You're saying Beth is really Colin, but she isn't male, at least not anymore? But, Beth sputtered, trying to formulate a coherent sentence. My guess is that the original DNA from Beth was broken down to its base code, possibly because of some kind of gene decoder/encoder element in one of the polymers. Ted, your theory that all three solutions broke it down is flawed. I'd guess it was the one from the far vat. Once it mixed with the others, the polymer containing the DNA was altered. Otherwise, Colin would have been affected as well. Of course, how did I miss that point, sighed Ted. Whatever it was that had the original Beth's DNA pattern then got into Colin's bloodstream through the head wound, like some sort of agent, an agent that started changing Colin's DNA to match its own. Well done, I think you've nailed it on the head. I think that had that other polymer not been in the mix or Colin had been exposed to only the same two solutions as Maggie, then he would have had the same ability to revert to his original state as well. Wait, you're saying that I'm becoming more like Beth inside as well? Moaned Beth. Sorry, but that's what the tests show. You have a significant amount of female hormones flooding your body. It probably started as soon as it came in contact with your body. Looking at the hormone levels, I would guess that you've been getting very emotional as your body changes rapidly, Jenna confirmed, giving Beth a sad smile. You don't think there's a way to stop it or reshape my body into a more masculine form? Asked Beth with a pleading look on her face. Well, even if you took hormone supplements, I doubt it would do much good. The process going on is replacing it faster than you can produce it naturally. Once those hormones have become ineffective and you start getting certain female characteristics, they will eventually fade away. Have you tried adjusting those changes? Jenna asked carefully. No, we were trying to keep up the appearance of me being Beth until we had an answer. Why? Do you think the changes have stopped? Asked Ted curiously. Let's see, shall we? I have a feeling Beth is here to stay. With that final note, Jenna walked up to Beth and undid several buttons on her blouse, gently touching her chest. Beth felt Jenna's warm hand on her chest, applying pressure. Beth didn't feel any pain, and the warmth felt oddly comforting, but after several minutes with the pressure, the changes returned to a normal state once Jenna released her hand. My suspicions are confirmed. Any alterations that were originally made were all geared towards becoming more feminine. The shoes that fit, the dress that tightened to make you smaller, these are all consistent with you becoming more like Beth. No changes, like reverting back to your previous shape, will work. It looks like the agent has a blueprint of your final form and only allowed changes that sped up the process. The disguise you created unfortunately played right into its hands. All it needs to do is bring the internals in line with the exterior, Jenna explained. So I'm stuck, then? Asked a distraught Beth. In more ways than one, offered Jenna. But there's one good thing that's come out of this, and you can thank Ted for that. You were transformed into Beth's shape before anyone realized it. Now you can live her life without anyone suspecting you. Once the changes are complete, you wouldn't even be discovered as someone else, even by a doctor. I'm guessing you can even start a family if you choose. Harumph, thanked Ted. Yeah, I'm sure that makes me feel much better, grumbled Beth. Look, get this straight. You are going to end up looking like Beth. Would you rather have had a long period of change where you slowly became more feminine? Think about it, you'd have been a spectacle, a man changing into a woman. You wouldn't have been able to say you were transitioning. Not when you end up looking like Beth's identical twin. The press would hound you, the scientific community would tear you apart trying to understand how you worked. And what if the government found out? Don't you think they'd love to figure out how to duplicate people for spy operations? The scenarios are too crazy to even imagine, she shuddered. This way, you can live a pretty normal life. You could get married, have children. You might even end up with a cute one like Kathleen, beamed Jenna, thinking of the joy her daughter had brought her. Beth realized the truth of Jenna's words and gave her a weak smile. Apart from the obvious change in gender status, she was lucky she wouldn't have to face the public humiliation and persecution her change might have caused. Even the possible threat from government agencies trying to uncover the secret would be avoided. She was set for life, as long as she was careful. Beth had plenty of money, a paid-off house, and a car. All she had to do was live someone else's life for as long as she lived. The idea of becoming a woman for real had an element of anticipation. What would it be like to experience life as the other half? Thoughts about motherhood and the eventual possibility of being a mother seemed unreal for now, but it was something a born male could barely comprehend. Ted watched Beth intently, waiting to see how she would cope with the news of her eventual womanhood. He stayed close in case she started to freak out, but for the moment, she just seemed distant. Look, I have to go, okay? Jenna stated, as she gathered her things. We'll talk later and see what the other samples show. I'll keep quiet about what happened, but I need to investigate deeper into this. Beth? I want you to come to my place tomorrow. It's Friday, so we can leave early. We really need to talk, woman to woman. To Beth, the words woman to woman struck deep into her psyche. She would be one soon, according to the data from her blood tests. She stood unsteadily and thanked Jenna as she picked up her purse and prepared to leave. Jenna hugged Beth and whispered that everything would be okay. Beth hugged her back, hoping she was right. Ted took Beth's hand as they followed Jenna to where Richard was looking after Kathleen. Beth didn't pull away from Ted, feeling the need to hold on to someone, anyone. Her mind was distracted from the fact that she and Ted looked completely natural walking hand in hand, with little Kathleen chasing after Maggie. Maggie had squirmed out of Kathleen's grip once Beth had appeared and scampered over, her tail held high. Kathleen caught up to Maggie just as the kitten was preparing to leap into Beth's arms. Beth crouched, smiling at Kathleen's obvious joy. Aunt Beth? Can I play with Maggie tomorrow? She was really good, and I took care of her, Kathleen asked sweetly. I'm sure something can be arranged. I'll see if the daycare will let Maggie stay with you, okay? Kathleen's eyes grew wide before she grabbed Beth in a tight hug. I love you, Aunt Beth, and Maggie too, she whispered in Beth's ear. Beth felt something melt in her heart. Kathleen's heartfelt words had broken through some invisible barrier she hadn't even realized existed. A rush of emotions flooded her body as she clung desperately to the child. I love you back, honey, Beth whispered back, astonished at the realization she meant every word. The depth of feelings for the child seemed to have awakened something deep within her. Richard came over and gently disengaged Kathleen, lifting her into his arms. He then kissed his wife as they made their way to the car park. Ted waited while Beth picked up the impatient kitten before walking with her to her car. He waited as she got in, watching her arrange her skirts so the door wouldn't trap them when it closed. You okay, Beth? Ted asked anxiously. You don't want some company tonight? I could grab some takeout if you want. Beth thought for a moment before shaking her head. Sorry, Ted, not tonight. I need to get my head around this news and try to come to terms with it. Thanks anyway, I appreciate your concern. Maybe tomorrow. I'll let you know, okay? Will you pick me up in the morning? Sure, 7:30, okay? Yes, okay. See you then. Beth started her car and drove off sedately, unlike earlier. Ted watched her go, wondering how he would have coped had their positions been reversed. He was surprised by her reaction when Kathleen had hugged her. He was sure her emotional state was very close to the surface, as he had seen tears well up in her eyes, almost as if she was about to cry. He would love to talk to her about how she felt with her mind being overwhelmed by foreign hormones and how it was changing her thoughts. Beth mentally thanked Ted for the good idea of getting Chinese for dinner. She didn't want to be bothered cooking anything that night, so she stopped off on her way home to pick up some more cat food for Maggie and get some Chinese takeout. Once home, she slipped off her heels thankfully and went into the kitchen to open a can of chicken and jelly for Maggie. She then went into the lounge with her meal and turned on the TV as she opened the styrofoam containers. A free fortune cookie revealed its typical pearl of wisdom. All journeys start with the first step. Yeah, mine's a real doozy, with a foot wearing a high heel, Beth thought with some despondency as she sat eating her meal. Later, after disposing of the empty containers, she went into her bedroom intending to lie on her bed and think. She removed her outer clothes and checked her body for any sign of the internal changes in progress. She looked beautiful and confident, a person Colin would have loved to have dated. Now she would be that date in any relationship. It was a crucial moment in which she could move either forward as Beth or sink into a depression of self-denial that would ultimately lead to Colin's destruction. She struggled to make that agonizing decision, standing there half-dressed in front of the mirror. Colin resurfaced. It was his decision, not Beth's, as to whether he lived or died. Colin looked at his body and weighed the pros and cons. After a few minutes of soul-searching, he decided it was time to let go. Filled with determined resolve, he looked about for the means to end it. Not seeing anything in the bedroom, he pulled on a delicate peach-colored robe that had small pom-poms dangling from each of the long sleeves. Tying off the belt, he started his search. Into the bathroom he went to look in the medicine cabinet. Rummaging around, he spotted it nestled there. He took the shiny metal instrument and went back into the bedroom. He sat at the vanity, looking into the mirror, and compared his face with a recent framed 6x8 picture of Beth that was sitting there. He looked at the metal object and sighed. He had heard it hurt using it, but he was determined not to back away from a little pain. Bringing the tweezers up to his eyebrow, he began to pluck. Ouch! That hurts, was Beth's first reaction. With the decision made, Colin let go, making way for Beth to resume her life. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a nagging thought had been plaguing her, something that said her appearance didn't match the original. She had seen Beth in the photo but hadn't picked up on the fact that her eyebrows were much thicker than the thin arches Beth had. Luckily, no one else had noticed, or only felt something had changed but weren't sure what. It was only now, with her intense focus on her decision to become Beth, that she had noticed. When Maggie decided to squeeze into the doorway to look for her mistress, Beth took a break. Blinking away the tears caused by the plucking, she scooped the welcome distraction into her lap. Maggie started purring, signifying that all was well with her world. Beth petted Maggie for a moment before resuming her painful chore. As her hands moved, the small pom-poms danced, attracting the attention of the kitten. Maggie watched as the balls bounced playfully near her nose and batted at the pom-poms, still a bit sluggish from her meal. A pounce from Maggie captured one of the balls, dragging Beth's arm away from her face. Hey! You scamp, leave my pom-poms alone! Hearing what she had just said out loud, Beth giggled, before breaking into laughter, seeing the irony of it all. She put Maggie on the floor, much to the kitten's disgust, before checking in the mirror. Pleased that her face reflected what she saw in the photograph, she put away the tweezers with a great sigh of relief. Leaving Maggie to her own devices, Beth went into the bathroom to turn on the jacuzzi. Adding some bath salts that smelled of jasmine, she got in and luxuriated there, letting her cares wash away. Checking her body, she still saw no signs of hair regrowth, a fact that pleased her no end. It looked as though that was going to be one feminine ritual she was going to be spared. Sleep that night was punctuated with several prophetic-seeming dreams. In one of them, she as Colin was lying on his back looking up at a rectangular patch of sky, then faces started peering down at him from the edge of what he realized was a grave. When the dirt started falling, although it didn't actually touch him, he felt its weight as the sky was gradually blotted out. In the next dream, she was Beth, wearing a black dress and veil. She was looking at the plain granite headstone into which were carved the words, "Here lies Colin Stockman, murdered by Beth Winslow on the..." Beth woke up in a sweat. Her heart pounded from the fading echoes of the dream. Trying to calm herself down, she reasoned out why it wasn't a murder of Colin. She was still Colin in a way, she still had his memories and his values. It was more of taking on a new challenge. To become a female called Beth and continue her life as best she could. It was life from life, a new beginning. Although it was still very early in the morning, she decided to get up and get dressed. Going to the bathroom to relieve herself and wash, she opened her satin robe to check her body again. Her nipples seemed rather sensitive today, and she suspected changes were afoot. Looking at her breasts, she saw the areola was larger and no longer looked the way it did after molding. Touching the nipple made her shiver as the sensitive nubs hardened under her touch. They are becoming real breasts, she thought wonderingly. She would have liked to inspect further down, but decided to leave that. It was too much of a distraction, and one she wasn't sure she wanted to deal with just yet. Moving back into the bedroom, she opened her closet to pick out the day's clothes. She selected a very smart jacket/dress combination in navy blue, with a light blue blouse with a ruffled front that seemed to go with it. According to her limited experience in mixing and matching, she wore matching blue panties and a bra in a slightly darker blue satin fabric that felt heavenly on her smooth skin. She wondered why it was easier to coordinate her feminine clothes than her old male clothes. Was it Colin's prior tendency to look at women, judging them by what they wore, or his occasional wistful thoughts about what it must feel like to wear such lovely clothes? Dragging her thoughts back to the present, she smiled, thinking she had all the time in the world now to find out.